Shrimp, shrimp, shrimp. They are boiled, fried, stewed, in a Creole sauce, an etouffee, stuffed with breadcrumbs and rice, and found in the gumbos and jambalayas of South Louisiana. Shrimping has a long history in Louisiana. Fishermen have taken advantage of Louisiana's marshes and estuaries of our coastline since earliest settlement. In 1774, an early traveler in Louisiana, Lepage du Pratz, noted that shrimp were being fished in the lakes south of New Orleans with large nets brought from France. Using small skiffs or wading in shallow waters, shrimp were caught with seine nets in the shallow coastal lakes and bays and along the beach. In the early years, shrimp was largely a product sold fresh in local markets. After Chinese immigrants introduced drying platforms for small shrimp in the last quarter of the 1800s, shrimp exportation to markets in the Orient began. The development of can liners improved canning techniques, and by 1880 the market distribution was greatly expanded. As the size of the catch increased to meet a growing consumer demand, shrimping emerged as an important folk occupation in Louisiana during the 20th century. Shrimp boats in Terrebonne Parish, where annual shrimping festivals and blessing of the fleet ceremonies take place. Photo, courtesy of Louisiana Tourist Development Commission. Two types of fishermen shrimp in coastal Louisiana: those who shrimp with the smaller vessels in the inland bays and shallow water zones, and those with larger vessels which shrimp offshore in federal waters. The inland fishermen operate during seasons regulated by the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. Often, their crews are family members, and the shrimping trip may last for 1 to several days. Larger vessels, sometimes also operated as family ventures, are outfitted to pursue offshore shrimp for extended periods of time and are able to work year-round. Many of the shrimpers who fish seasonally live in settlements along the bayous of South Louisiana and along the lower Mississippi River. Many come from a tradition of fishing and shrimping during the spring, summer and fall months, then oystering and trapping during the winter months. The ranks of shrimpers have increased as others have entered the shrimping industry. Many left city and industrial work, preferring to be their own boss. While traditionally many shrimpers in Louisiana come from a French-speaking background, Chinese, Filipino, Croatian, and Vietnamese immigrants have also entered the South Louisiana fishing industry for their livelihoods. The Lady Fatima, a shrimp trawler built by Melvin Kiff. Photo, A. Gauthier. The earliest boats used for shrimping in Louisiana were built on the lines of traditional Mediterranean fishing vessels. Referred to as canoes, these sailing boats were fitted with a centerboard, or hinged keel, and could operate in shallow waters. Boats commonly used today for shrimping the inland waters of the coast evolved from these early lugger-style boats. The term lugger comes from the boat's original sailing rig that consisted of a single large lug sail. The modern-day lugger commonly seen along the bayous, lakes and bays of Louisiana is a flat-bottomed, shallow draft vessel, which varies in length from 20 to over 40 feet. The engine and wheelhouse, which replaced the centerboard casing of the earlier sailing vessel, are set to the stern, with the fish hold located in the forward section of the boat. Questions remain about when and by whom this boat style was first introduced to Louisiana. But it is known that Dalmatian, Croatian, Oystermen who settled in the freshwater marsh of southeastern Louisiana in the late 19th century popularized it and adapted it modern shrimping. The larger offshore shrimp boats used today were introduced in 1938 by Florida fishermen, who helped to develop the state's offshore shrimping industry. These South Atlantic-type vessels, typically 50 to 65 feet long, have deep drafts and refrigeration. Steel-hulled vessels powered by larger diesel-fueled engines are now common. These large shrimp boats are frequently rigged to tow 2 nets. A third boat type, the Lafitte skiff, is also used for shrimping on the Louisiana coast. Inspired by the World War II PT boats built in Louisiana, the Lafitte skiff is an adaptation of the basic skiff design. Traditionally built of marine plywood or cypress planks, they are now common in fiberglass and aluminum. These vessels incorporate a semi-V hull with more shear and flare in the bow section than is characteristic of traditional, smaller skiffs. Used primarily as shrimping vessels between 18 and 45 feet long, they are commonly built in small shipyards by specialists as well as individual fishermen. Emile Dufresne of Lafitte, Louisiana, was a builder of some of the first Lafitte skiffs. They have a sleek, shallow draft design and are powered by automobile engines converted to inboard marine use. This enables them to work efficiently in the lakes and bays of the inland coastal waters and the shallow waters along the coast. They are rigged with either small otter trawls or with wing nets, commonly called butterfly nets. In the late 1800s, the Hall Seine net was commonly used along the Louisiana coast. Crews of 8 to 20 men manned the larger sailing luggers and rowed small skiffs to set the nets, some of which had dimensions as great as 1,800 feet. While a crew sailed the lugger, men in the small skiffs played out the net by rowing away from the lugger, then circling back. The lead, or weighted, edge of the net dragged along the bottom, forcing the shrimp and fish to collect in the wider, pouch-like central area of the Seine. The shrimp were then dipped out of the net, placed in the boat's holds and kept cool with dampened palmetto leaves. Use of the Hall Seine continued until about 1930 for several reasons. It was well suited to the mud-bottomed shallow bays of the inshore waters, and the nets themselves represented considerable investments of the shrimpers. In 1917, the otter trawl, still in use today, was introduced to the Gulf Coast region from the Atlantic fisheries, which first tested it in the early decades of this century along the Carolina coast. Although the adoption of the trawl represented a considerable investment requiring modification of the lugger to gasoline or diesel power, the rewards were great. Its use expanded the fisherman's range by opening new fishing grounds in deeper waters, and increased the per-man production by cutting the necessary manpower to 2 or 3. This Lafitte skiff is rigged with skimmer nets. Photo, a Gauthier. The trawl net is a conical bag-like net with 2 boards, or doors, connected by lines to the mouth of the net. The angle of the boards, controlled by chain bridles, regulates the spread of the net mouth and keeps the trawl on the bottom. Trawl bridles are the independently operated tow lines connecting the net to the boat. Other lines at the mouth of the net function to weight the bottom of the net to the seafloor, maintain the floats attached to the top of the net for buoyancy, and tickle tee shrimp from the seafloor into the net. After a drag of about 2 hours, the otter trawl is hauled in with a power winch, brought to the side of the boat, and hoisted onto the deck, where the contents are then emptied, sorted, and stored in the hold. In the early days of shrimping, the shrimp were then transferred to ice boats that checked the shrimper's progress and carried the shrimp to the shoreline platforms for sale and processing. Some shrimp were sold by the shrimpers directly to the drying platforms. About 1933, in the bayous of Terrebonne Parish, another type of trawling rig came into use. Referred to as the night trawl, or butterfly wing net, it is used in shallow water at night when the shrimp are near the surface of the water. The rigging consists of 2 rectangular wing nets, or frames, with 3/4 inch mesh netting. These nets are hinged to the bow of the boat so that the nets can be lowered perpendicularly or raised horizontally to the vessel. Some of the early frames for the butterfly nets came from the barrel rims used in the sugar factories. This type of net is generally used on small, fast luggers and Lafitte skiffs, or is mounted to docks or platforms along the bank of the waterway. While shrimping continues as a way of life for many folks in South Louisiana, changes are occurring which will affect the continuity of the shrimping tradition and the availability of shrimp. As a business, shrimping has become much more competitive, with more licenses granted now than 10 years ago. As a result, shrimp catches per individual have dropped. Federal regulations requiring the use of turtle excluder devices on vessels fishing offshore and increasing costs for nets, fuel and ice further complicate the issue. When the shrimp numbers are up, the price per pound drops.
Unzip the side of the trawl about halfway back and open it up and get the crab trap out of the trawl. This one here has been in the water for a long time, and so the little spines that stick out get caught in the trawl and make it a little difficult. You got to start unhooking each of the holes in the trawl. Actually, it looks like somebody already caught it in their wheel.
A steady increase in cheaper, imported shrimp from South America and Southeast Asia has greatly cut into the local fishermen's market, causing resentment among Louisiana fishermen. Pollution in the waterways and the rapidly disappearing marsh are also taking their toll. So while shrimping as a way of life and a family tradition is still present in Louisiana, many fishermen are having to relinquish this heritage because of so many adverse conditions. Their children will not learn to work the trawls and boats or share in the conviviality of a net repair session. The community spirit of the fishermen along the bayous and the shared experience of a family working together will be lost to the changes brought about by government, industry, and development of a foreign market. Shrimping as a way of life may live on only in the stories of the fishermen.
So we'll be working on both sides and collecting more shrimp into the back of the trawl.
The Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries this week closed waters to shrimp fishing in the state's eastern and westernmost bays and lakes, ending the season for many shrimpers. According to a report in the Courier of Homer, Louisiana, a high percentage of small white shrimp were being caught. Fisheries biologists closed several areas to protect those shrimp and allow them to grow to marketable sizes for the fall season. The closed waters include the Mississippi-Louisiana border to the eastern shore of South Pass of the Mississippi River. Also closed are state waters from the western shore of Vermilion Bay and southwest pass at Marsh Island to the Louisiana-Texas border.
Pockets into the back of the boat. Pockets are big enough to where they put some boards out across the back, and when they untie the pockets, they'll fall out right on the deck. Looks like we got a 4x4 or a 4x6 in starboard pocket along with all the shrimp fish and crabs.
Shrimpers will still be able to work areas within Lake Pontchartrain, Chef, Mentor and Rigolets passes, the Mississippi River Gulf Outlet, the Calcasieu River Ship Channel and portions of the Mississippi, Breton and Chandeleur Sounds, said biologist manager Brian Lesina. If they close, I would hope they have good reason to do it. Fuel prices are a killer, and with imports driving down dockside prices, it's a double whammy, said Alan Este, owner of Blue Water Shrimp Company in Dulac, La. These shrimpers have everything in the world stacked up against them right now. Commercial techniques for catching wild shrimp include otter trawls, seines and shrimp baiting. A system of nets is used when trawling. Baited traps are common in parts of the Pacific Northwest. Shrimp trawling can result in very high incidental catch rates of non-target species. In 1997, the FAO found discard rates up to 20 pounds for every pound of shrimp. The world average was 5.7 pounds for every pound of shrimp. Trawl nets in general, and shrimp trawls in particular, have been identified as sources of mortality for species of finfish and cetaceans. Bycatch is often discarded dead or dying by the time it is returned to the sea, and may alter the ecological balance in discarded regions worldwide. Shrimp trawl fisheries generate about 2% of the world's catch of fish in weight, but result in more than 1/3 of the global bycatch total. The most extensively fished species are the Akiami paste shrimp, the northern prawn, the southern rough shrimp, and the giant tiger prawn. Together these four species account for nearly half of the total wild capture. In recent years, the global capture of wild shrimp has been overtaken by the harvest from farmed shrimp. For management purposes, Louisiana's state waters are divided into inside and outside waters. The shrimp line separates these waters. It generally follows the coastline from the Louisiana-Texas state line to the Louisiana-Mississippi state line.
Alright, so we have a big butterfly right here.
Inside waters, landward of the shrimp line, are inshore waters. Outside waters, seaward out to 3 nautical miles, are the territorial seas. Inside waters are further divided by major estuarine basin. The current shrimp line can be found in LAC 76 to 370 or at www.wlf.louisiana.gov/page/shrimp-line. The Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, LDWF, the Commission, and the Louisiana Legislature are responsible for managing the shrimp fishery in inshore waters and the territorial seas. The Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council and NOAA Fisheries are responsible for federal waters. Seasons. Trawl, skimmer and butterfly nets cannot be used for any purpose in state waters during the closed shrimp season. Shrimp seasons are flexible and are determined by the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Commission based upon biological and technical data relative to shrimp populations as well as public input. The spring inshore season usually begins in early to mid-May, and may extend into July. The fall inshore season usually begins near mid-August and typically extends into December. The shrimp season in Louisiana's outside territorial waters is generally open year-round except for a closed season in portions of state outside waters, which may be set during the late winter to early spring months, usually beginning in December or January and extending into March or May. The shrimp season in the EEZ is usually open year-round. No size limit on any saltwater shrimp taken during the spring open season in Louisiana. No size limit on brown shrimp or sea barbs taken during any open season. There is a minimum possession of 100 count, whole shrimp per pound, on white shrimp taken in either inside or outside, offshore, waters of Louisiana. This size restriction applies to the taking or possession of such shrimp aboard a vessel. There is no possession count on white shrimp taken or possessed from October 15th through the third Monday in December. When more than 50% by weight of the shrimp taken or possessed is sea barbs or brown shrimp, the maximum allowable amount of undersized white shrimp taken or possessed shall not exceed 10% by weight of the total shrimp taken or possessed. Cast nets, dip nets and bait sends. A recreational fisherman is allowed to use dip nets, bait sends, and cast nets not to exceed 8.5 feet in radius. Recreational fishermen shall not take at any time more than 50 pounds of shrimp per day during closed shrimp season and 100 pounds of shrimp per day during the open season, in the aggregate, per boat or vehicle, regardless of the number of persons thereon. Shrimp taken are to be used for bait or for the fisherman's own consumption and are not sold, traded or otherwise permitted to enter into commerce. Certain WMAs and state or federal refuges may have different rules. Always check with an LDWF enforcement office if you have questions. Restrictions on night shrimping. Night shrimping is prohibited between the hours of 1/2 hour after sunset to 1/2 hour before sunrise in the following areas: Vermilion Bay, East and West Cote Blanche Bays, and in Atchafalaya Bay, from the western shore of Vermilion Bay to the western shore of the Atchafalaya River and the Atchafalaya River Ship Channel out to Eugene Island as described by the inside-outside line. Trawling at night is prohibited in Cameron Parish sections of Calcasieu Lake, the Black Lake Bayou System, Grand Bayou, Little Burton's Ditch, Grand Lake, and White Lake. Trawls. Trawls cannot have a mesh size less than 5/8 inch bar or 1 1/4 inch stretched. In that portion of state inside waters from the western shore of the Atchafalaya River to the western shore of Vermilion Bay and southwest pass at Marsh Island, mesh size must not be less than 3/4 inch bar or 1 1/2 inch stretched during the fall inshore shrimp season. Trawling during open season and possession limits. During the open shrimping seasons, trawls 25 feet and less are allowed for recreational purposes. Recreational shrimpers using trawls 25 feet in length or less are limited to no more than 250 pounds of heads-on shrimp per day per boat.